Hey everybody, hope you're doing pretty well. And this is episode 3 and the final episode of my 3-part series going over the new rewards card. I hope you enjoyed the first 2 videos. I'm trying to keep them all around 15 minutes. This one might go a little bit longer because we are going to be reviewing cards from 2 teams, from the Dragon team, the Death team, and the Neutral team. It's still only 4 cards to review though, so hopefully it'll stay about the same. So let's jump right into this. First off, we've got the Ever Hungry Skull. This is a very interesting card when you talk about the higher levels or even the lower levels. So he's always just going to have that 1 HP, and as you level him up, he gets more armor. He gets thorns in the higher level to make him a very interesting anti-sneak monster, and he has also the ability to return fire. So now you can talk about him putting in that last position, bouncing back damage on the monsters that have sneak, that are archers, which do exist now a lot more in the game. Also bouncing back damage against people that are in the the melee monsters that are hitting him, right guys? Sorry, my mind's going a mile a minute trying to remember everything I want to tell you about this card. He does cost 5 though, so he is not a cheap card. This is not like a little guy you're going to put on the board. You're going to have to really make sure you're in the right mode. Obviously, magic armor is a great mode for him. Also, protect, where everybody gets armor, is probably not a good mode for him because you're going to see more people playing shatter, his greatest weakness. You're also looking at him being a beast of a card in equalizer, especially because it would almost make sense for you to play a pretty high life monster to make sure you turn his life into, say, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10. Then you go talking about a guy with 11 armor and 10 HP on the board that's dealing back thorns damage. He flies, which is a very interesting card for earthquake mode, especially if you know, you're looking at countering some of those kind of interesting earthquake decks that you see out there that people play. In general, I like the card a lot. I think it's going to be very niche when it comes to its usage, which is going to make it a little bit cheaper. It does make sense to have this card, though. If you don't have some of the great cards to use in Equalizer, this is one of those cards that now gives you a powerhouse to use in that mode and be much more competitive. As a brand new rewards card that's common and niche, some people will not see the value in it, and I imagine over time it'll go down in value, which will actually allow you to amass the cards to get it to the level you need. Now, obviously, you're probably always going to want to get this card to the max level because there are advantages at every one. If you want some misses on him, you want him at level 2 so that he gets missed. If you're really playing down in silver, you want him at 3 so he gets that extra armor with that extra speed. When you want him at 5 if you're playing, as well, once you get your summoner to that level, because he gets more armor and he gets more, but at 4 he gets more damage. So now he's sitting here with 3. So there's really, you know, important levels to go to. It's probably, you know, get him to 3 because that's only 14 cards. Then save up until you can get him to, well, then get him to 4 once you can play him at 4 for the extra damage. I'd say you'll take the extra damage to lose the 1 armor, but don't stop there. Hopefully you're going to be pushing him up until 5. Once you get him his thorns, he could probably stay at level 6 for you if you're on a budget and you don't really want to level him much higher than here, because after that it's just more armor and more speed. But if your play on him is to put him on the board in a position to go ahead and take damage, like in your last position or in your front position tank when you don't think mages will be around, like in Lost Magic, well, then he's going to have his 3 attack, his 3 speed, 9 armor, and he's going to be dealing thorns damage back. So already he's set up pretty good. Also, it's kind of interesting, the Death team doesn't have really good healers, but this guy doesn't have healers. It can't be healed because he only has 1 HP when you normally play him. So it's kind of an interesting idea, playing just a big old tank and not worrying about healing him when he actually can be played. Let's go ahead and talk about the Revealer, who at first you might think this card is not that impressive because it's 4 cost two magic, 2 speed, and 5. It has immunity though. It has the reflector shield, and it has stun. But the big thing is it has stun at level 1. This is one of the very few cards in the game that has stun at level 1. And so at the low levels, I can see this card becoming very, very playable because it gives you a chance to land stun on some of those very big front row monsters that cause you a lot of different problems. You're probably going to want to try to get him to level 3 if you can play him there. That way he has that extra damage, because you don't want to, mages that run into void armor and can't do damage aren't that good. But he's really a 4-cost stun machine. That's really what he's meant to do. But after that, he becomes something very interesting if you're playing him at max level. When you play this card at max level, he becomes an immortal second place position character that has stun. And what do I mean by that? So you can put him in your second position to be targeted by blast damage, and he can't die. He has immunity, so he can't get any kind of status effects, and the only weakness he would have would be to direct snipers that are aiming at him. Now, that is a big weakness, so maybe you don't want him in that position, but that is the position you generally want him in. You want him to be kind of watching the matches. Obviously, don't put him in that position if it's everyone's a sniper, but he's really, without a sniper, he's kind of a counter to like a Jotun deck that doesn't have a sniper, or to mages decks, or even the life deck that have a few guys with splash damage in that second position. He's also got no problem with his low speed shooting at guys with phase with high speed, because backfire won't come back at him, so he won't kill himself very easily. He's an interesting card to play in poison mode because he's immune and can attack from the back row, and at the same time he can't take any kind of bounce back damage, so that's pretty cool. He might be able to help you beat a llama cube because he can stun the cube, and so that's something that's very interesting. In general, immunity card, I think there'll be a few times where you play this card and it will be a reason that you win the game. So that's something that's actually pretty interesting. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Dampier Infiltrator. Now, the Dampier Infiltrator is a very interesting card because it's a rare card for the Dragon set. They don't have a lot of rare cards, and so in Lost Legendary modes, they're kind of a lost team. But more rare cards are being added to the team, so that sometimes you might just want to use that summoner to give a different team those summoners' abilities, like Kitty, Speed, and Heal, and then you'll have access to a few of these rare card monsters. Now, a Double Strike monster is always very interesting. Even down here at level 1, it has Double Strike Sneak. If you have an Inspire monster on your team, you can now add this one in. There's some interesting life teams that have Inspire, and so that you could see the Dragon Summoners be played, and then Dampier running, and she could easily have 2 attack. And with the right setup, you could even see her played with the Dragon Summoner gives +1 melee, and now she could possibly be inspired up to having 3 attack at level 1. That's pretty wild. 3 attack, double striking is pretty wild. Now, as you level her up, she picks up that extra damage at 4. So there's no real, I don't see a real big reason to push a sneak monster that's going to be hiding in your back row from 1 to 2 to get this extra HP. You probably want to go 1 to 3. So either leave it at 1 or take it to 3, because at 3 it gets another speed. Speed is important for sneak monsters. You don't want to be missing when you attack. You don't want to be double striking and not hitting anything. And so this is a nice thing to pick up. After that, obviously, if you can play it at 4, you want it at 4 because you get the extra attack. After that, though, 5 is interesting because you pick up Cripple, but you don't really pick up that much attack. Double striking Cripple is an interesting one. She's going to be double striking for 2, dealing 4, possibly dealing 6 if you got an Inspire on the board, possibly dealing 8 if you doubled it up more. Then Cripple doesn't help that much. If you got somebody attacking 4 and 4, there's a good chance they're going to kill whatever they hit. Now, if you have somebody attacking 2 and 2, because you're not someone that could play the Inspires and stuff like that, but you can play the card at level 5, then Cripple matters a little bit more. It's also because kind of neat on a sneak monster, because let's say somebody has 1 armor, and on the first attack you were going to deal 2 damage, but you took away the 1 armor instead. But you have Cripple, so you cripple them, so now you still dealt 1 damage to them. Your second attack hits them, you deal 2, and you put another cripple on them. it's not the worst setup in the world, but cripple is always kind of an interesting card. I think it is going to be more usable on a sneak monster because at least it isn't going to be cleansed and taken away, and it can be something to help you counter those triage teams that are out there, because if you can cripple a monster down, they won't be able to heal it up and prevent you from actually killing it. After that, when you push it up in levels, you're really just improving its speed and HP until the last level where you give it Affliction. I like Affliction on a sneak monster a lot. Back row taunting shield bearers, back row taunting wave broods, back row taunting anything is becoming a meta played up in the champion level. And so to give it Affliction at champion level, where I can put a sneak monster on the board that is meant to go and hit those back row tanks that are sucking up our damage, and actually go ahead and make sure that they cannot be triaged healed. And Affliction on the back row is a lot better play than Affliction on the front row, because unless a summoner introduces it, there is still no back row cleanse. So if you want to throw your shield bearer in the back, if you want to throw your wave brood in the back, and you planned on healing them up, well, if I can put Affliction on them, you cannot heal them up. Given the taunting ones, any Affliction monster is going to hit them, but there's also some other kind of back row healing monsters that this is going to be useful for. It never gets a third damage, so it stays the same from 4 to 8 in how much damage output it can do, but it does get faster, it does get a level more HP, and then it does get Affliction. It's a strong card. Double attacking should never be underestimated. It can be comboed with other double attackers, both in the green team and the life team. And the dragon team already has a double attacker. So you could see this played with like Grum. You could see this played on life, and you could have Silver Shield Assassin running around with the Infiltrator, and running around with the 11 cost guy that double attacks. I don't remember why I'm forgetting his name right now, but we'll check that out in just a moment. We'll go over the VENATOR really quick. We'll go ahead and check his stats out. This guy is a very interesting card. A lot of people might be underwhelmed with his abilities, but I do think a 2-cost Affliction is a very cool card. The Death Team doesn't have a card with Affliction, so I can see him... I'm saying Affliction. It's Amplify. Sorry. The Death Team doesn't have a card with Amplify. Now, there is another neutral card, a 4-cost Mage with Amplify, but that's double the mana to put onto your team. And now, if at max level, you can drop this guy in behind some of the different cards that the Death Team has that bounces back damage when it comes to their tanks, and it's going to make them bounce back more. It's got a slow while being immune, while being camouflaged, and having the reflection shield. This does mean that in that second position, he's almost impossible to kill. He won't start a game with poisoned. He can't be targeted by a sniper, and even if you were to hit somebody next to him and try to blast damage it onto him, it can't damage him. So you can put him in that position, and your slow is going to stay on the board and your amplify is going to stay on the board. No one's going to be able to take them off the board until they get rid of those monsters that you've put in front of him or behind him. And you can actually put him in any position, and that'll be true. Nobody can kill him on accident with blast damage, and nobody can target him. That is pretty amazing. He the one caveat to that, I think, might be Scattershot. I might be wrong on this, but I think Scattershot does have a chance of hitting him, but at least blast damage will not be a problem for you. And so I'll show you some of the cards I think he's going to be really helpful with. And at 2 cost, it's a very, very cheap way to get Amplify onto your team. So we'll add Untamed, we'll add Dice, and we'll add Chaos. So the obvious one that comes to mind on the Death Team for me is a Dark Harkon. He has already Void and Magic Reflect, so go ahead and put Amplify on there, and he's going to taunt in all those mages and bounce it back with an additional damage. And if he's kind of a counter to some of the blast mages, and so now you can put somebody behind him that isn't actually going to be killed. So that's kind of an interesting thing, though there are some interesting reach monsters on Death Team, so maybe he'd go and hide in a different position. He also works with Cursed Windeku because of the thorns. So see, these are some things that they have. Oh, I lied. Death Team does have Amplify. Look at me. I'm a liar. And a 2-cost Amplify. But this guy can be killed, right? He can be sniped, he can be blasted, he can be sneak monstered. So the idea here is, if you're really building your deck around the idea of returning damage, you now have an amplified monster and a slowing monster to give yourself a team that they cannot kill until he's in the first position. So you can put him anywhere you want, mix him into the board, last position, so he's your last person standing, or maybe second or third, just because you want to give whatever's behind him a little bit more help. The Revealer and the Skull. So we talked about the Skull's use cases. He's really going to be your tank in the particular rule sets that he can be used. He can also possibly be hidden in the middle of the board on a melee monsters can attack from anywhere. That's an interesting idea to counter. Certainly in melee monster, in all melee monsters, playing him on the board is an interesting, like, hey, opportunity monsters, come run into my shield for a while we work on killing your team, and then eventually you'll kill my Skull. So he's very niche use case, but when you use him, he's going to be a powerful card. The Revealer really replaces the Enchantress as the new stunning mage on the dragon team, and it's really nice to see them get another card with stun. The only one that they had was the Soulstorm, and the Soulstorm has really weak attack, and if you ran into return fire, he pretty much killed himself instantly. Since this mage only does 2 damage and has 4 health, he's not going to blow himself up too quickly, and he has stun right away at level 1, which gives the death team the ability to run some very interesting bronze teams with a Curse to Wendigo and a stun, and that's something I expect to be really good. I've already kind of went over the Infiltrator. She's really going to mix into any of the sneak teams. Now, there's the Life Sneak team. That one's kind of extra fun because then you could do 2 sneak monsters with double attack, at least in Wild. In Modern, I think she probably works in with the Water team sneak team. Obviously, it's got to be with the Dragon Summoner going. So let's say like you wanted to play the Dragon, the Water sneak team setup, but dragons are available. Then you're looking to play Kitty. Oh, the Carnage Titan, that's the other double attacker. So let's say mana gets a little bit higher, right? Well, if you have a Kitty, you play Kitty then with blue. They still get the speed boost, they don't get the armor, but now you get to add in cards like Carnage Titan and the Infiltrator along already with the strong sneak cards that have the blue team has. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Again, where'd he run off to? Oh, there we go. This card here, the main point of this card that I can see is that it's an ability for you to get these 2 abilities on the board for 2 mana in a way that they cannot take them off the board till he hits the front row. His 1 attack almost seems comical to me. It'll almost be like a chicken kill when he gets a kill that rare, where it's going to fall to the front row and it has to have the other person only have 1 life left, and then you go ahead and land that blow. I can't say that's going to happen that often, but I don't think people should overlook the idea that I could put a slow on the board that you can't get off the board. I can put an amplify on the board that you can't get off the board until you deal with every other monster that I designed my lineup around, and possibly all of them. All right, everybody, I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys very soon about the new Life Summoner.